I'm Jae Malone and I'd like to read you one of my stories. This is Lorna and the Loch Ness Monster. 8-year-old Lorna, her mum, dad and her brother Luke went to Loch Ness for a short holiday. Luke was 3 years older than Lorna and he liked to tease her. Loch Ness was a very long way from where they lived in Manchester, but their dad had told them there was a ruined castle near the campsite where they were staying, and Lorna was excited as she loved exploring castles. But she was also a little scared. In the car while they were driving up, Luke had said there was a huge monster in Loch Ness that would eat her up if she went in the water. "It can't get me if we're in the boat though, can it?" Lorna asked. "I won't be in the water then, will I?" "No," said Luke, "but it will know you're on the boat and it might tip it over. Then it can eat you up." Her mum laughed when Lorna told her what Luke had said. "Well, big brothers like scaring little sisters. Your Uncle David did the same to me when I was your age. Don't you take any notice, and anyway, the Loch Ness Monster is just a story that somebody made up. It doesn't really exist." But she told Luke off for frightening Lorna anyway. "I was just joking," Luke said. "I know the monster isn't really real." Well, Lorna thought about that. If the monster didn't exist, how did everyone know about it? But just in case it did, she decided to stay on land where she'd be safe. The monster couldn't get her if she stayed out of the water. When they arrived at the campsite, they drove up to a huge silver caravan. "This is ours," said Dad. "Come on, let's get unpacked. Then we can go and have a look around." Lorna thought the caravan looked enormous. Later, after tea in the campsite cafe, Dad asked if they would like a boat ride around the loch. Mum and Luke said yes, but Lorna shook her head and asked if they could try archery instead. They all agreed that would be fun, so Dad said the boat ride could wait until the next day. But the next morning, when Dad suggested the boat ride again, Lorna shook her head and asked if they could go cycling, and as everyone liked riding bikes, that was what they did. The following day, again, Dad suggested the boat ride. Mum and Luke wanted to go, but Lorna asked if they could visit the old castle. "Well, I suppose I did promise her," Dad said. "Oh, but castles are boring," said Luke, "especially the ruined ones." "Tomorrow we'll go on the boat, I promise," said Dad. But they all enjoyed the wonderful tour around the castle ruins, even Luke. They went up into the tower where they could look across the loch, watched a film about the history of the castle, and saw a display showing what it would have looked like when people actually lived there. There were lots of old weapons, which Luke enjoyed looking at, and running around the walls was great fun. But Lorna wasn't interested in weapons, and while Luke was pointing out some special swords to his parents, Lorna ran over to the outside walls and clambered up to walk along the top. Her family had not noticed she was no longer with them. Hearing a strange cheeping sound above her, Lorna looked up to see a big bird with a wide wingspan and was not watching where she was going. Suddenly she slipped, and before anyone saw what had happened, she fell into a dark hole and slid for what seemed like ages. Her shouts for help were muffled inside the tunnel, but soon it seemed to even out like the bottom part of a slide in a playground, and she slid onto what appeared to be a pebbly beach inside a watery cave. She had lots of bruises and had scraped her knees and elbows, and one of the side pockets of her shorts was torn, but she was more worried and shocked than sore. She looked up the tunnel to see if there was any way she could get back to her family, but no, it was too slippery, and she couldn't see anything to hold on to help her climb back up. She didn't swim very well, and the water in the cave looked too deep for her to paddle through it. What was she to do? She was very frightened. It would soon get dark outside, and she knew her family would be worried, but how would they find her? At the mouth of the cave, the gentle ripples of water grew into waves. Something was moving towards her under the surface. She looked for somewhere to hide, but there was nowhere. A long head rose up from the water, followed by a much longer neck and body. "Hello," said the monster. "What are you doing in my cave?" "Oh, I'm really so sorry, Mr. Monster," said Lorna nervously, and not a little shocked. Who knew monsters could talk? "I just sort of slid in through that tunnel," she said, pointing to the hole in the wall. "Are you the Loch Ness Monster?" "Och, aye, but I'm not actually a mister. I'm a Miss Monster, and I've heard people call me Nessie, but I don't like that name. I like Fiona. And Heather. Aye, Heather. That's a lovely name. What's your name? Would you like to stay with me? You'd be very welcome, as I get a wee bit lonely on my own. I could bring you fish and freshwater shrimps and waterweed every day to eat, so you'd not be hungry." "Oh, yes, I'm sorry. My name's Lorna, and thank you for asking, but I really need to get back to my family. They'll be worried about me. I just don't know how. And she started to cry. Oh, please don't cry, Lorna. Don't worry, I can take you back. All you need to do is climb onto my neck. Look, I'll come up onto the beach to make it easier for you to get on. But I'll warn you, the water's very cold and you must hang on tightly. You'll get wet, I'm afraid, but you'll not be in the water for long. The jetty where I'll leave you is quite close by. Oh, thank you, Heather. Lorna wiped her tears away with the back of her hand. That's very good of you. As Heather waded out of the water and onto the beach, Lorna was amazed to see she had no feet. Instead, she had what looked like the oars people use to row a boat. And she sort of waddled up to the stones. She was almost completely out of the water when she stopped, leaned forward, and picked something up off the beach with her mouth. Lorna wondered if Heather had found something to eat. Climbing up, Lorna wrapped her arms tightly around Heather's neck. I hope I'm not choking you, she said. Heather smiled and said through almost closed lips, Oh, no, that's quite comfortable, thank you. And dinna worry, I won't have to take you under the water. We'll be on the surface all of the time. On the way back, Lorna told Heather about her family and that they lived in Manchester, but they were there on holiday for a few days. Keeping very close to the shoreline and hidden by the trees and plants, Heather lowered her head and slid under the jetty, leaving enough room to make sure Lorna didn't bump her own head on the wooden boards above. Well, no one's seen us, and I'm guessing that's your family looking for you up there with all those other people. I'd much rather they didn't know about me, if you don't mind. But it's been very nice to meet you, and if you're up this way again, please do come and visit. Oh, I will, and thank you for all your help, said Lorna. Before you go, Lorna, I'd like to give you a wee present, said Heather. It's just something to remember me by. And when she opened her mouth in a wide smile, Lorna saw something shiny wedged between two of Heather's teeth. It looked like a button. That's for you, Lorna. You can take it, and didn't worry. I promise I'll no bite. But what is it? Asked Lorna, reaching up to take it. Holding the small brooch-shaped thing in the palm of her hand, she could see it was a circle, looking like a closed-up belt with a lion standing in the middle and some letters which Lorna could not read around the edge, and she thought it was very unusual. A long time ago, when I was quite young, there were lots of battles around here and men kept trying to take this castle from each other. I remember one man, I think someone called him the Bruce, who seemed to be in charge. He had this button torn off his shirt in a fight on the shore. He didn't seem to notice. So when they went away, I took it into my cave and I kept it with some other shiny things I'd found. But now I'd like you to have it, 'cause you're my pal. Thank you, Heather. I'll keep it forever and I won't ever forget you. Lorna put the button in the side pocket of her shorts, the one that wasn't torn. You better go now. I can see your family are worried, said Heather. But how do I say about how I got out of the cave and onto the jetty? Lorna had no idea how to explain it without telling her family about Heather. Well, when they asked, just say you waded through the water, holding on to the reeds on the bank until you got to the jetty. They'll all believe you because they'll not be able to think of any other explanation, and you're certainly wet enough. You better go and get dry and warm now. Goodbye, Lorna. It was lovely to meet you. Goodbye, Heather. It was lovely to meet you too, and thank you so much for helping me and for my gift. Heather, the Loch Ness Monster, smiled, and with a wave of her tail, she swam away out of sight as Lorna clambered up the jetty and began running up the path. Mum! Dad! She shouted. They turned and rushed down the path to meet her, but Luke got to her first and gave her a hug. Hi, sis, he grinned. Glad you're okay, but what happened to you? The monster saved me, she said. Yeah, whatever, Luke chuckled. You know monsters don't exist. Yes, I know. I'm just joking. Lorna smiled and she patted the side pocket of her shorts. Dad, can we go for a boat ride on the loch tomorrow, please? Asked Lorna.